go live. There it is. Okay. Oh, wait. Ooh, shit, my sound's not set. What the fuck is going on? Why is it virtual desktop?
These are technical difficulties.
You have the old Benny Hill music over the technical difficulty screen.
No, the Battle Dwarf, we just might.
Okay.
Like, need to sit up to the chat. So, how should I
Why?
continue like my monologues like 2 weeks ago for tenants? Because like I have a lot of wisdom, especially it's partially martial wisdom when it comes with the tenants, as well as just life or upbringing, experience.
Kadale?
Autodod's monologue corner.
Pretty much. I can monologue the whole podcast. Like I'm well traveled, well experienced.
Kadale? It won't let me go live on TikTok.
Through Stream Element?
Banned.
Well, the stream elements is still fucked up, but on Studio.
TikTok Studio?
Yeah.
Is it because your camera's being used to, oh, that's right, no.
No, I should be able to create a virtual camera and act as a splitter. But there's also ways to kind of get around.
There we go. I have to not hide my camera. Stupid stuff. Okay, we're on TikTok.
Yeah. All the Chinese people know we're here now.
Hello, my Chinese pie.
Lord of China knows we are here.
Let's move along.
Great movie. Fantastic movie.
Without that, we would not have gotten the sexy, angry Mulan Man.
No. I see your sexy Asian Mulan Man, and I raise you, Eddie Murphy, as a dragon. Oh, thank you. Dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your family.
Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your whole family.
Right. Yep. And also the greatest, like, hello there, turn of phrase. What are you? Your worst nightmare. Such an edgelord thing, but it's so great.
You're not live on TikTok?
No, I'm probably gonna have to set up too much stuff, and I'm not willing to do that while we're streaming. Later. Stupid that Stream Elements won't let it run. Right. Silence on the comms, I am starting. Olaram, Jatektor, Balsukoigar, Nervore. This is Kadali Kabor, your host for today's podcast, joined by Candle Joshua and Ananad Banel. The Battle Dwarf is away on a quest, so we will not have her joining us today. Unless she joins in way after, towards the end.
Got it.
Yeah. So, let's get started. This is Season 4, Episode 7, and we're going to be covering Tenet 4. A Mandalorian must be prepared and willing to defend those who cannot defend themselves defend the way, and be willing to lose every drop of blood and breath in the process. A Mandalorian must be willing, able, and prepared to be a protector of the weak, those who cannot defend themselves and the way. They must be prepared to step forward and act when others will not or cannot, even going so far as to be willing to lose every drop of blood in the process. This does not mean a Mandalorian is to resort to violence except as a last resort. This is the way, Ibit Rooney.
Big Rooney.
This is the way.
So that one's actually got a shorter description than normal, just like the next couple do. Where tenants 1, 2, and 3 took almost a couple minutes to read through. But let's talk about how these relate to the tenets that come before and the tenets that come after. So we've talked about non-initiation violence last month, and now we're talking about defending those around us. We'd have to remember that escalation of force still plays a factor here. Just because we see someone being violanced, I couldn't think of a better word right there.
Violated.
Well, that just sounds dirty too.
Well,
Bullied.
It covers a multitude of sin.
Right. So whenever we see someone in the midst of violence, we're not going to immediately resort to firearms. I got sneeze building up.
And the wise words of Rob Schneider: "Don't bring none, or don't want none, won't be none."
Excuse me. I love springtime. Yeah.
The defense of others really comes down to a psyche manifestation, to where it's almost like a neo-spiritualistic endeavor, to where it's a exemplification of your will. So whatever if your will is weak, you'll say, nah, their own problems is their own problems, it sucks to be them. But a strong-willed person will have the courage to say, that's not right, I'm going to put a stop to it, or make the situation better. But you need to have the wisdom to make that situation better, instead of risking an escalation of that environment where firearms have to be involved. So you kind of have to kind of word foo and open a dialogue to host a de-escalation, a verbal de-escalation. And so everybody in the situation can benefit from what's going to take forth, rather than resorting to the martial option. Whereas you're, as a Mandalorian, you should be prepared to lose every drop of blood, but try to go for losing every drop of sweat first before going for blood. That's that's the whole Rob Schneider gospel that is so near and dear to my heart. And it's just like, go for talking so much you lose your voice, rather than going for violence. But it's still in lieu of violence in the defense of others.
Your best weapon is your brain.
Exactly.
Use it first before violence.
Yes. And that goes into, what is it, Tenet 7? Where we train our mind and our body?
Read books. Read books on de-escalation.
Nope, that's not Tenet 7.
Read books on anything.
That's Tenet 6.
That's my bad. That was close.
Yeah, 7 is
Don't discriminate.
yeah,
Judge
don't
Mag.
discriminate against anybody.
What I that one's gonna be a hoot and a half to talk about. I've already something off the top of my head.
Oh, speaking off the top of my head, so oh, I forgot how I wanted to start that part, but essentially,
Talk in the middle and then make a little introduction.
no, as a faith, I think we need to. I'm not going to say pass a collection plate, but it's along the lines of that, where we
Well,
take donations and we would give them out to areas in need.
Yeah.
For
So
example, Selmer,
I do
Tennessee.
that already.
I mean, yeah.
And Miss Julie has helped with that.
Well,
Is it in the special response section? Is that where it is?
well,
Yeah.
I'll say this. Eric Turnage and I also noticed Swordfish on the Discord. Talked about that 2 weeks ago, actually, and that uh, outward community is ultimately what we want. But like I raised to him like kind of like a dues kind of subscription thing. But it's would be expressly stated to him as a voluntary basis. So like a voluntary tithe that isn't necessary, and for those, and like the board is actually working on that. They're discussing that actively when they meet on the first Saturday of every month.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing is being taken into consideration.
The that conversation started due to the hurricanes we had last year about this time,
Yeah.
and the reason we didn't help out then is because we don't have any ground structure for
See,
tax and legal purposes. We don't have anybody. We don't have the clergy, and
Right.
that's the crucial position that we need to be able to send the money out to these places. For example, we would need someone to be able to go out to Selmer, Tennessee, or we would need the people to go out to Virginia or North Carolina where the hurricanes hit, or Georgia where the hurricanes hit, and be able to dispense the money where it needs to go. We can't just say, okay, here you go, here's thousands of dollars to a random person in the street in those states.
Right, and that's
yeah.
who ends up being the Manalore, the community outreach individual, on the board. Forget who it is. It could be Mr. Douglas, or it could be Mr. Bishop, I'm sorry, Bishanawa. Um, but it's kind of up to the community outreach to set that stuff up. But since everything is kind of fledgling, it's kind of like when I talked to Eric, I kind of said like we need to help ourselves first before we help others. But that seems to be, in his words, a slight antithesis to what we're about. And there's nothing saying that we can't help others in the way that we can while also getting set.
Right.
I would like to see the donations go, if not completely, not completely to our own that are in need, because we are a small community, and we do have members. Like, we've got a guy that needs to have like half of his teeth pulled and can't get that done. Can't even see a dentist until like October. Stupid, because of the dental care system is. But I'd like to be able to help people that need it, that are of our own faith, and then with whatever we have left, go outside of the faith to help.
Right, and I agree with that as well.
Right, and that's what we're kind of talking before we went live is that the kind of open door kind of mentality would also be a form of community outreach to where in the towns that do have a Saturday, farmers market, set up, a small tent and, have people who are, newer to the farmers market say like, oh, hey, these people are the people to barter with, and here's to set up different avenues of husbandry and horticulture, and have that be like a very wholesome kind of experience to where they know who we are. We're all about the acts of homesteading, and
Right.
in that way kind of open a dialogue within who we are as Mandalorians, but then also say like, yes, we're prepared to be martial, but we're not all about that, even though we exceed at it.
I
That
don't
is just
remember
a
where
single
it was brought up. I don't remember where the suggestion was brought up, but based off of, I'm going to go with based off of the show, it was suggested that maybe we have the Armorers Guild members be our clergy.
Well, and so when I had like a 2 hour conversation with Eric, so like there's a lot of stuff that he explained to me, and that there's going to be like the Mandalore, but then ultimately there's going to be a armorer within each I guess clan nature. Um, so it's basically going to be the head food the head fuba, and then which is the main five. And then as it trickles down to clans when that gets ready, that's gonna basically look like the main federal board, where it's kind of like a Baptist, First Baptist kind of I guess model, but not, but kind of adapted more of a Mandalorian culture.
So the Mandalorian clan structure.
Yes, the clan structure. Yeah, I'm. There's so much going up in my
Yeah.
in
Your
my head
head's
right
in
now.
multiple places at once.
Eternally.
I want to give you a Ritalin and just say it's okay.
I want to give him
Oh.
coffee and see how much further it goes.
By the way, Kadale, the
20
chaos
20
has
ounces
been
of coffee.
summoned.
So good.
What they can do?
The chaos has been summoned. Price, Bo, Lannis, Firebug.
Oh, nice. Y'all just lost the game.
Yes. Well, that's the first thing Firebug said.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So, I bring up the storms so I can bring up this story that happened to me on Wednesday with the tornadoes and storms that came through Mississippi and Tennessee. Well, I get to work. It hasn't really started raining yet. I finally get on the forklift, start unloading a live load, and this driver, for whatever reason, either couldn't or wouldn't move his tandems to the back, the rear wheels of the trailer. So I've got a gap at the door, the top of our door and the top of his trailer, probably about a foot and a half gap. Well, it starts raining, and I'm thinking, this rain sounded a little bit heavier than normal. And sure enough, over the radio, our yard dog driver comes over and she says it's starting to hail. Not even a half a second after that, this piece of hail comes through that gap and just pings me in the head.
Yep.
That's your luck. That's why you weren't in the skid steer.
Well, here's the thing. Is it
Well, I
lucky that he
couldn't
got
be
pinged?
in there because they were both. We have two of them, and both of them were in use.
Is he lucky because he got hit with a piece of hail against all odds, or is he unlucky because he got hit again, by the hail against all odds?
I'd say he's lucky because you should have had your helmet on, right?
don't have a helmet when we're on forklift. We only wear the helmets when we're at the guillotine.
OSHA would say you don't have to, but it's recommended. That's in the OSHA handbook, which I know every place of business that has a forklift has it. It just tends to be extremely dusty.
We don't have helmets at my place of work.
Yeah. The only reason we do is because we have an industrial guillotine that's 120 inch by 80 inch, or just over 7 foot by 10 foot. And it's hydraulic.
My recommendation is to wear
Not
a
be hit by hail.
wear a helmet in the forklift. Because like whenever you're working things, especially up high, things can just like fall out containers.
We also have the top guard has a cover on top of it.
Let me guess, the cover's gone.
No. No, I was on the small clamp truck. That's right. That one doesn't have the top guard. It's a rental. It didn't have one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I need to talk to my supervisor, my plant manager. Can't say my supervisor because I am a supervisor. I need to talk to my plant manager and see if we can get replacement ones. Even though it's probably gonna be way on the bottom of the list of shit to replace at this point.
Well, I mean, and it can be easily fabricated as well. Because I mean, drill a hole in plastic that's roughly the size of the cover.
Well, for the most part, if it's raining, we'll grab thin sheets of cardboard and just zip tie them or
Right.
wire tie them to our forklift.
Fortunately, I have a covered forklift. 1, 2. I've had to do that, but we shrink wrap it. Well, my forklift also has a heater in it. Well, did have a fan till night shift broke it off.
Let me guess, it's one of those where you have to screw the bolt, turn it around, and screw the bolt back?
No, it has a housing. It's installed upside down because it's in the top right corner. But it has a housing, and then there's a ball that lets you turn it.
Yeah.
They snap that off.
Kind of the same thing we have on 2 of ours.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that little ball piece is now loose, so it just hangs there, and you have to use like a water bottle or something to keep it in place.
Oh no!
So Wednesday we got off work early. 2 hours into the shift, our general manager calls plant manager up to the office. Is like, hey, we got all these storms coming in. What do we want to do? So they made the call. We're buttoning up and getting the hell out of Dodge at 4 p.m.
Yeah, because you were on by the time I got home.
Yeah. Well, I would have been on a little bit sooner than that, but I had decided to stop for food on my way home, and it took almost an hour for that food to be ready. And I'm just sitting in the restaurant watching all the fucking lightning and listening to the thunder and watching the waves of rain. It was literally, it would rain for 20 minutes. No, not even that, probably 10 minutes. And then there would be a lull. Next wave moves in. And we're done. Third wave moves in. I'm still waiting on my damn food.
We get lake effect storms all the time where I'm at in Michigan, and they blow in over the lake from Wisconsin, and they just gain strength and pop up.
Okay, I have a question.
They do it all the time.
I might have an answer.
No. It's, are you a Youper or troll?
Oh, I am a troll.
I mean, the vast majority of Michigan dudes are going to be trolls.
Yeah.
I've met a few Youpers.
I've met, in my entire life of meeting so many different people, I've met one Youper. which is
Do you
one.
remember the peninsula part? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's the Upper Peninsula.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Maybe 10, and I live here.
Well, I mean, but then it's biased towards trolls where you are.
Yeah, very much.
They don't like coming near you trolls, so they don't.
They're honorary
No,
paladins.
it's all retirement. They go up there to retire and enjoy their life and never have to deal with the city folk again.
Makes
Pretty
sense. Makes sense.
I'm envious. I wish I could do that.
But man, that was a long ass tangent.
Yeah.
But
Hey, we're 6 minutes in.
was one thing like with storms and you can defend others is like you could literally take initiative in if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle or all-wheel drive vehicle is literally just see like who's either walking or needs a place to go and just act like a taxi service. But you don't necessarily want to do that while you don't have means to defend yourself, because there's a lot of times people get carjacked because storms just bring a lot of unknowns into the environment and a lot of variables, and people are opportunists and take advantage of those unknown variables or increased unknown variables. Oh,
Just the both of you.
we're gonna do the same exact thing.
Hey, I'm just resting my head.
I was gonna do the
And
same thing.
I'm enjoying story time.
With that said, it's a very difficult thing to kind of get into the psyche of getting to that like willingness to defend people even when you don't have any skin invested into the game. And you just lost, by the way.
You don't remember the second I jumped into the Discord, I was like, y'all lost the game. You don't remember that?
I'd choose.
And then you started playing,
I
I had it in 0 seconds.
Hey.
Hey.
He's like 26 minutes behind us.
Yeah.
Maybe don't be that Ritalin.
No, I just chose to forget it. But so the whole entire psyche around that of the willingness to defend is kind of like essentially being like a paladin or even a bulwark of on behalf of others is a strange psyche to get a hold of, because you got to think it's like kind of like a righteous fury. And I kind of borrow a lot of what the from the Judeo-Christians, specifically of the Christians' New Testament of Jesus, flipping tables and whatnot for the individuals doing tax stuff in the lobby of the temple. And money and religion are not supposed to cross paths, or else it can make corruption flourish. But kind of like have that religious, nobody's gonna be losing their life here today. Kind of like my will, made manifest, and you have to like really, it's kind of like describing a color, but it's like kind of manifesting your willpower into being all encompassing without your nervous system just being like, basically, screw you, I'm here to take ass and kick names, and
I'm here to chew gum and kick ass.
and I'm
all
all
out.
right. And it's a very, very difficult mindset for people who aren't naturally protectors to get into, but it's all devout into being manifesting your willpower into a situation to say, my way or the highway. Everybody else, are just, living in my world. I'm the one who owns it, kind of thing, for their situation, just to make sure everything is at peace as much as possible. And so nothing. It's basically the mathematical kind of game that it works out. And Jocko Willink explained this on his podcast to Jordan Peterson, or Dr. Jordan Peterson, is that you basically have your willpower, your plan of the situation, and you need to overcome the enemy's willpower of their plans for the events to follow. So it's this willpower, this clash of willpower versus willpower on pretty much the good and evil. As long as you're on the side of good, you should come out on top. And so you should fortify yourself physically and mentally in order to use the tools to go ahead and best apply and force your willpower into a situation. What were you saying, Kendo?
Oh, one
You
thing.
just like you just saluted, and I thought that was like raising your hand in
Oh
class.
no. Firebug saying she has to go take care of
No,
some
don't
things.
do that. Don't do that. Also, you're a little bit too high. You're hailing a taxi.
At least it wasn't at 45-degree angles.
I don't know. It might have been pretty close.
No, you're hailing a taxi. Anyway, go on, Kendo.
No, Firebug was saying she had to go for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Do floor troll things, she said.
But and so it's like the fourth tenet, even though it's simply stated, it's much more of an encompassing thought that doesn't necessarily have two ways about it. That's why it's so simple, but yet the complexity of the human psyche to kind of bring that aura from inside inside your spirit, your consciousness, to control a situation is I could talk on it forever. I could give 1,000 classes on it, and
Oh, please do. Nobody stop.
Yeah, and I very much want the Mandalorian compound to be a thing, because I'm probably going to be living there 3 months out of the year, giving classes on specifically Tenet 4 and a couple of other tenets that have more of a complexity and nuance that kind of goes into what we're talking about, but it's much more of a lifestyle and a manifestation of willpower to go into different types of situations and just say, you know what, screw you, this is how it's going to go, but also being able to having that mentality in a group kind of setting to where you're working with other Mandalorians, so you're kind of compromising, not diminishing, you're compromising your willpower to basically therapists call it shelving the agenda, to where you're shelving your wants, but your willpower is now becoming kind of somebody else. And so that additive kind of this additive kind of force multiplier of will is being manifested in a situation. And that's really how you get the basis of force multipliers in either martial or even non-martial situations, is that you have one person leading, and you have the willpower of like complete faith in whoever tends to be leading, either a fire team or well, what's it called? It's an event leader. Whatever you guys are doing, because like in most, you take most gangs, most friend groups, most social units. There's usually tends to be a leader in one event, or they take turns, but there's always still a linchpin in a situation. And what Mandalorians kind of are the same thing, to where one person has a leading role. They're like, hey, I want to do X, and then other Mandalorians will say, hey, I'll do what I can to help you do X, but then we'll kind of take turns, and that's what we're called to do and that's what humanity has always thrived in doing. And up until the last 200 years, people have been up their own butts, thinking that they're all that in a bag of chips at every given moment, where you don't necessarily have the prevalence of shelving the agenda, but also not ditching the willpower to be a force multiplier as a group unit. And that how that group unit ties in, it's much easier to exert your will. So like you have a hand, and for those not only listening to audio person and reaching out my hand. So you have the hand. Well, if you don't have your fingers, what use is the base palm? Yes, it can grip stuff, but not as well. But when you add multiple different avenues of your will, you can fully articulate a situation and kind of fully encompass it like a ball. And that is your environment. The more friends you have, the more you can exert your will into an environment. But then those fingers have to be well aligned to the greater structure of a palm. The wise words of, I guess, some Greek somewhere. The world is your oyster. It's saying time immemorial.
As someone very old in a time long ago once said,
The world is your oyster. But it's you can either use this information for good, which I fully intend to and advocate for, or you can use it for evil. It's knowledge. All knowledge is like a tool to better exert your will, whether it be that be maligned or beneficial.
Well said.
Yeah, the tenet 4 is all about psyche and willpower, and the physical exertion of bringing that willpower into the world around us. If you don't have that manifestation of willpower, so for me personally, watching I watched the ending of season 3 of Invincible, and the ending gave me literally the adrenaline rush to do a bunch of exercise, lift a bunch of weights, and say hell yeah, let's go do it. Yeah, and so that is actually an emotional response from the Abdullah Oblongata to exert. It's basically just like a short circuit of emotion to bring your willpower into reality, and that's the kind of manifestation that kind of feels like. To where if you watch I don't know, freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie, and you go oh man, that's awesome, you can do all these things. I want to be able to do that, and all that you get a rise.
I'm gonna go curl 3,000 pounds.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
getting the chopper.
Yeah, and so I can have the strength of 1,000 men and all that stuff. That's really a exertion of your willpower, but you don't really have a avenue to exert it, and so it's just you get this overwhelming feeling, this sensation. But if you channel that and can command that at will, then your willpower and your surroundings will be much more to your liking, because you have that drive to change your surroundings to your liking.
Like the will and need that Star Wars actually existed.
The what?
The will and need to have Star Wars actually exist in this world.
That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. I mean, I'm just gonna say this: there's lore in humanity that is just as interesting as any fictitious sci-fi lore.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. Yeah, but I would like for the whole opening theme, where it's in a galaxy far, far away. That galaxy actually exists, and all that has and did happen. and then
Well-
we eventually discover that galaxy.
Yeah, I mean that could very well exist because there's a paper that I was reading this morning about I can't remember the two physicists, but it's basically the come on, I'm gonna have to pull it up. It's the branch, the bulk, something bulk theory, of the basically because of neutron stars, there is a parallel dimension that we can only fathom, and barely fathom, and we need to delve into looking using the James Webb to look into the cores of stars in order to peer into that extra dimension.
While you're doing that, the one of my favorite Reddit stories I've seen on TikTok is the exact prompt Kando just said is, what if the Star Wars universe was real and we made contact with it? Well, the aliens, whatever species it was, could have been Nemoidians for all I know, come to Earth.
No,
And they're trying to.
it was the Supreme Chancellor's aide, that one
Okay.
Twi'lek-looking dude.
Oh, it was Masamita.
Yes.
So Masamita comes to Earth, and they're talking about the separatist movement, and the president or the president's aide or chief of staff, whoever they're talking to, is like, wait, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine? He is the Senate!
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it was
And then
just
he goes to-
hilarious.
General, go get the movies.
All right. I have it pulled up. It's just it's from not Nautilus, but it's basically just the article is neutron stars hint at another dimension, and the two physicists on top of this is Lisa Randall and Raman Sundram. So you can do that with that information as you will. But yeah, it's just they're using I guess quantum or people using their model as a basis, and then using quantum to see if it's true or not, which is only a speculative theory, but it's very interesting to think about because it's
I'm going to play the role of Zell real quick, and we need to get back on topic. We've got about 15 minutes left.
okay. My bad.
Got something for that.
What you got left?
So, not only should we be protecting people, martially, but we should be protecting people that if you see somebody being disrespected in the workplace, you see somebody
Oh, yeah. 100%. I agree.
on the street, that needs, a helping hand with some food or a warm blanket, you can provide to that person who's homeless or whatever it is in their situation. That's protecting.
right, and yeah, I definitely agree with protection takes many forms. It can be the harm that or the hand that harms or the hand that helps, and that can be very much the same philosophy for both at any given situation.
So, I actually just had one pop into my head. Not everybody is going to be expected to wade waist deep into a firefight or a fight of any kind. This could also mean calling people to help. For example, numbers can be overwhelming. Call for backup. Call law enforcement. Call medical. Call the fire department. we're not expecting people to do all this by themselves.
Yeah, Mandalorians aren't supposed to be replace emergency services. They're
No,
not
we are
here
not
to do that.
responders. Well, okay, in a way we are, but not. We're not the trained first responders.
We're the support.
First one's there, but we don't want to.
Well, here's well, it's
We don't want to have to shoulder that burden all the time. We are because we feel called to.
much like got this from one a guy in the Unsubscribed podcast. We're not to replace, like he was saying in the context of prior service members, but Mandalorians aren't replacements for emergency services. We're just the people you want to have right next to you when shit goes down, because we usually have a plan.
Like the good old saying is, no atheist in a fire hole. In a foxhole.
Foxhole, yeah, no atheist in a foxhole, and there's no theist in peacetime.
I'm sorry, there's no what in peacetime?
Theist, there's no individual who believes in God in peacetime.
Why is that?
It's just a war. It's the unfinished work quote. Just because, like, when everything's peaceful, there's no reason to leave. There's no variables that are relatively unknown. It's just I don't really know the full intentions of the quote. It's just the unfinished saying.
Never heard of it.
So yeah, it's
I'm hearing that one too.
well, it's very similar to Jack of all trades, master of none, but every once in a while, better than a master of one. That's the full completed saying.
I definitely resemble that one. I've had so many damn hats in my lifetime.
Yep, same here.
I'm so happy that you know all. Like I've got a stupid grin on my face. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm a compendium of
Useless and yeah, I understand.
For those who have played Skyrim, I'm unfortunately, through how my brain works, Humaeus Mora. I remember things when most do not.
I forgot so much over the years. I need to get back to it.
So what else do we have we can talk about?
Well, is Dirge here?
Dirk is not here. I
Damn.
guess he's still he's still working through some things.
Who can do conspiracy corner?
I can.
Take it away. Put on football hats, people.
So, as it turns out, the Israeli government put Lee Harvey Oswald in charge of the JFK, and that JFK was wanting to rely on the gold standard, on bringing the American dollar back to the gold standard, and relying on the for precious minerals. And so that would actually collapse a lot of the Israeli banking institutions, Federal Reserve being the biggest company that would lose so much power. And so they basically colluded with the Israeli government to orchestrate the hiring and the hit on JFK with Lee Harvey Oswald. But then they also orchestrated the involvement of Jack Kirby, Harvey Oswald's assassin, to tie up loose ends, so nobody could actually get from Lee Harvey Oswald who contacted him about his endeavor.
Wait, wasn't Jack Kirby also the
It's no relation, same name. The Jack Kirby is not the Marvel person. Pretty sure his last name is Kirby. Jack Kirby, assassin. Yeah. Hold on, wait. Harvey Storm Killer. Jack Ruby. I'm sorry, not Jack Kirby. Egg on my face. Jack Ruby. My bad.
And all
I'm
of
sorry, I it was Jack Kirby.
But it's I don't cross pollination in my brain. I don't know. I got the two names do sound familiar. But yes, it's all orchestrated by the Israeli on behalf of the Federal Reserve, which is a corporation, not a government branch or government department. That's all I got.
On that note, children, remember,
Dang it, you couldn't
the best
go on
you
for
can
like
do.
9 more minutes?
Silver.
What was that, Kendall?
You couldn't go on for like 9 more minutes?
I mean, I can, but it's more speculative than factual.
Obviously, I'm
Not
joking.
exactly for an hour.
Being a smart ass.
I mean, think of it as being polite to Silicon, so she doesn't have to listen to another 9 minutes of stuff to edit.
Oh no, I'm sure we can make 9 minutes of just random bullshitting.
Oh yeah, we can. Definitely.
With sprinkled in knowledge, so she has to edit through it.
Yeah, no, I ain't about that life.
Like I said, invest in gold, silver,
Oh, not
and brass.
only precious metals, but also invest in storable foods as well in times of turmoil.
It saved my ass many a times. We have a storage closet in our apartment that we keep at least a month's worth of food in. And when we had a economic downturn at work, they ended up cutting a bunch of our hours, doing a whole bunch of funky stuff. But we ended up eating out of that for about a month. Just having to buy like the little stuff that goes in it. Like,
Right.
oh, do we pound of pork?
Right.
And
Yeah.
we got a week's worth of food.
Yeah, and the rule of thumb, every survival person will either say something similar. If they don't know anything about survival. But you have your base rations on top of whatever you can find here and there to eat. So like if you can find meat, God be praised, and you have your rations with that meat, with your rations of meat, whatever you can find, whatever becomes available, and that's ideally what rations, what stored food is actually there for. They're not to rely solely on. They're to diversify what's available, or have a minimum amount of calories, so you don't go hungry and go into atrophy.
Remember, squirrels are edible.
Yep. Squirrels, coons, possums, armadillos.
Taking away a surveillance drone of the animal kingdom by eating squirrel.
No, birds are the surveillance drones. Also, birds don't exist. They're all drones from the government.
Yeah, I agree. Birds are not the surveillance drone. Squirrels are the masterminds.
Yes. Have you not seen Bone?
But at
Not
the
seen
at, what'd you say, Wes?
I said, have you not seen Foamy?
No.
Foamy the squirrel?
Oh, that's what we talking
Yes,
Not
Foamy.
familiar with that.
about. No.
I was actually making a Rick and Morty reference, but you're not wrong with Foamy.
I'm pretty sure
You're
they were referencing. I'm pretty sure they were referencing Foamy.
Interesting.
I forgot about Foamy, dude.
What kind of horticulture thing that a lot of people, especially the hunters, don't take into account is the old adage, and this comes from Native Americans. And I'm doing a lot of
Paraphrasing.
I'm doing a lot of paraphrasing. Is that you let the population do their thing, let their do the things and like multiply, and then a year after that point, you can start getting the older generations, so they've had time to breed, and there's the colorations in the fur that you can tell with how old they are, and so you don't deprive the animals. Yeah, you don't deprive the gene pool, but you aim to expand it, because if you take out the older generations, it gives more resources for the younger animals to then partake and multiply. And so that can be done with every single food source, every single animal. And so when you kill it, hopefully to be in a single blow, respect it and give it the humility that and grace that it deserves. But you also just do a silent prayers like thank you for the food that that Mother Earth and Father Time has provided me. And if you can, when you drain the blood, return it to the earth, so the energy can go back into the soil and beget life. Just Lion King, Circle of Life thing.
Right.
I guess that's where the Native American in me comes around, that I kill something, I'm going to use every piece of it that I possibly can.
Yeah.
So none of it goes to waste.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah. Putting the bones to the ground is something that might just happen, but something that's not a deliberate act. I'm talking from my own upbringing, which is Native American but anyways, yeah, the spilling of the blood deliberately, that's generally not done. I mean, if we make a kill, we catch everything and use it.
right.
Sometimes
And yeah, it's the intentional spilling of blood. It's a kind of like a Jewish kind of act, since the blood tends to be a little bit more sacred to Jews.
Oh yeah,
And
it's in the Jewish tradition that sacrifice, it was supposed to be a replacement. I mean, instead of the person shedding their blood, they'll kill an animal and use the animal's blood into their own. That's how come they got that the concept of sacrificing animals. But that eventually got them in trouble when Jesus came along and turned over the money changers' carts, because the money changers were buying and selling animals past the door. Kind of like they'll sell you an animal, take it to the back, and then bring it forward again and sell it again repeatedly. It wasn't. They were not using the sacrifice the way it was meant to be. That's why we just got upset. Anyways,
right.
the thing is that it was all about replacement. You know, I use an animal to shed blood because I'm not in my own, but the blood is supposed to be the same.
I think
Yeah.
So I have a fun fact.
When I make a kill, there might be some blood spilled upon the ground, but that's not because I did it deliberately. It's because the animal died or whatever. But generally, for the most part, when I take that animal, I'm taking the use of all of it, and if that includes the blood, so be it, you know.
Right,
Isn't it?
and yeah, and crushed up bones with crush up when you can crush up bones in a mortar and pestle, and it makes great fertilizer.
Yeah, you
So-
use everything.
I have a
Yep.
fun fact.
What's up?
It takes about 250 male. It takes, yeah, about the iron in the blood of about 250 males to create a short sword.
Oh yeah, for the iron from the iron contact.
Yes.
But then you can
Yeah,
also
literally a sword from the blood of your enemies.
yeah, and it's funny how it takes the blood of millions of people to make a philosopher's stone.
Yeah, when you only need
These records.
250 for a sword.
It just
That's-
makes me think of and you know
That was more
Oh, why?
Oh, I thought it before he said it.
Oh,
unfortunate, very very unfortunate.
Oh, I think at that point, I think it's time to wrap this up.
you're well.
We're diverging too much now.
Silicon, if you're
Yeah.
hearing this, please add that on with a picture. If we've
Oh,
seen it,
no.
everyone else needs to see it too. Just put it at the end.
Yay.
Oh.
Oh, I have been your host, Kadali Kabor. Thank you, everyone who has sat through all of this with us, or will sit through it on the edited side. We appreciate everyone, we really do. And please share this with your friends, share this with your family. Help us raise our numbers in the way. We need more people. Please, we need more people.
Join the chaos.
Yes,
I mean-
join the chaos that is the way.
We don't necessarily need more bodies. We need the right people.
Oh,
Yes. Quantity over quality, or quality over quantity.
quantity over quality, you were saying it.
I was saying it bad. I may need one.
You were saying it the Russian way.
Yeah.
I
In
mean,
Russia, quality quantity's you.
okay.
Oh, feel free to hit the QR codes, the links and profiles, all that good stuff. It'll bring you to all of our social medias. It'll bring you to the Facebook for the way. We have a Discord. We've got it all. But we look forward to hearing and seeing all of you beautiful people. Again, I am Kadali Kabor, eBay Karuni.
Bikruni.
Be the groom. This is the way.
Well.
All right. And that's a wrap.